G'day. Well, the Ferrari drivers rolled up to the Suzuka circuit in Japan in two of the most exquisite road cars I've seen in a long time. Colourful, sleek, super expensive, and I'll go into more details in just a moment. Let's kick it off with the brilliantly bright yellow Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. This is the 296 GTB. Top Gear rated this car 10 out of 10. You can't get any better. In the US, they start at around $350,000, but to be honest, who's buying the base model? Carlos's was a V6 plug-in hybrid, turns out 819 horsepower. This was a right-hand drive vehicle because, of course, Japan drives on the left, much the same as my country and Britain. And in fact, do you know the percentage of the world's markets that drive on the left? I'll tell you a little bit later in this video. When I saw this car out in the driver's car park, I was excited, but wait till you see Charles Leclerc's car, and I'll get to that shortly. This is the GTB. There is a GTS version, which is the convertible, and in the US it's, I think, about a $30,000 premium for the convertible. Was Carlos driving? No, he was passengering in with his new trainer Pierluigi at the wheel. And do the drivers line up at the likes of Hertz and Avis for their rental cars? No, they don't. Many of their cars are in fact provided by a company called F42. They provide about 500 cars for Formula One events, and they also now do MotoGP, which has been bought by Liberty Media. If you have a small or large event where your crew and your customers are going to need rental cars, you need to get on to F42. They take the pain out of the whole car rental process. There is no waiting for someone at that counter to re-input all the information that you've already put in. You simply roll up to the F42 tent in the car park, all the paperwork's been done, you simply get your keys and you're off. If you're running an event, and remember, there's no event too big or small, get onto F42. There's a link in the description below, and let them take all of the hard work out of car rentals. You won't be disappointed. Let's have a look at what the Red Bull drivers were driving, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Were they in Fords? No, they weren't, because Ford exited the Japan market in 2016. They were instead driving their old faithful Honda Civic Type Rs. These are a 5-seat but very sporty car. And in Australia, I don't know if that's the same in the rest of the world, they provide a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is pretty handy. I should say that the drive that these drivers have typically is not very long, because most of them end up staying at the hotel right next to the track. That is the Suzuka Circuit Hotel. Now I wonder which driver got this room, because it's a quirky situation, that hotel. The rooms are certainly bigger than most, and it is very handily placed, but quite frankly, on Friday night, it would have been quicker for a driver to walk back to the hotel than it would have been for him to drive, because the traffic is savage on the Friday night getting out of that circuit. But yes, normally a short drive from their car park at that hotel to the driver's car parks. There are two, and I'll go through that a little bit later. Shall we talk Aston Martins? Yes, and yes, you are exactly correct. Lance Stroll was in a DBX in a 707, and his had a 707 number plate. And Lance wasn't driving, he was indeed a passenger. And what would typically happen for those coming into the middle swipe gates is that the driver's trainer, probably, who's driving the car, pulls up out front of the swipe gates. There are some spectators on the left-hand side of this shot, where some drivers would go over and sign autographs, and the drivers would head into the track, and then the trainer would head off to the driver's car park and come in separately. His teammate Fernando was in a red 707. Jumping now to the McLaren drivers, and both driving the exact same car and model. This is the Toyota Harrier, named after the Harrier bird, as was the Harrier jump jet. This is a compact mid-sized SUV crossover. It's sold in the US under the model name Venza, has been since the 2021 model year. Is it similar to a RAV4? A little bit. A bit more elegant and classy, whereas the RAV4 is more off-road and features a more aggressive design tone. And this is a smaller vehicle than these boys normally arrive in. If you go back to the Saudi and Bahrain races, they're in monstrous big SUVs. If you follow most of these drivers on Instagram, you'll probably realise that a number of them took the train from Tokyo to Nagoya, and then the local train, or picked up a car from there. And that Shinkansen, the fast train, is fantastic. It's absolutely glorious. And I think what the drivers love about Japan, particularly on a train where you're in the first class cabin, is that you're not going to get pestered by too many people. The Japanese seem to be a very polite and ordered society, and drivers get their space. I mentioned the Red Bull drivers driving Honda Civic Type Rs. I can tell you that the V-Carb drivers drove exactly that same car. And what I love about driving into this track, because we would come in the media bus, is you drive past morning and night a whole host of people who are sitting out the front gates just hoping a driver will come past and wave or, God forbid, even stop and sign some autographs, which doesn't happen often, but sometimes those people are rewarded for their waits. Up next, Alex Albon driving a Toyota Crown. Now, this is not the same Crown that the Japanese use as their taxis, and their taxis are quite incredible. If you haven't been here, one of the unique things is that they have an automatic door opening system where the driver opens your door onto the pavement and he closes it using a handle. And oftentimes we'll sit in these taxis and they'll still have all that white lace on the seats. It's different, it's quaint, and for me it's typically Japanese. Oh, and Alex's teammate Logan Sargent was also in a Toyota Crown. As an aside, we have a lot of these Honda step wagons which are used at the track for ferrying people around. And you might have seen in one of my other videos I'd mentioned that they had their Honda logos taped up. That is because of a sponsorship clash, I believe. Next up, let's have a look at the Mercedes drivers. Lewis Hamilton on the Thursday came in this blue SUV, but only on the Thursday because Friday through Sunday he was in a white Mercedes S63, while teammate George Russell was in a black S500. Shall we have a look at the Alpine drivers? Both of them driving A110s, but one car, that of Esteban Ocon's, is remarkably rare. Well, from my research, only 24 of these two-tone versions were ever provided into Japan. 24. And I don't know how they got hold of this one, but certainly the PR people from Alpine were keen to let people know that they were driving those A110s. What do these sell for? In US dollars, about $81,000. And if you happen to be in the know as to who owns that one, I'd love to hear the story. I'm figuring perhaps Alpine's put a plea out to their customer base saying, would you allow an F1 driver to drive your car to the track? But I could well be wrong. Here's Nico Hülkenberg on race day getting out of a Lexus LS500H. This is a gorgeous car, and his teammate Kevin Magnussen would agree too because he was also driving an LS500H. 3 drivers to go, and I'm going to go to my most favourite car for the whole weekend. It might be my favourite for the year, this black and yellow version of the Ferrari 296 GTB. This was Charles Leclerc's car. This is black with yellow striping. I did some research on this car, and Car and Driver took it for a spin. They said they got to clock a 0 to 100 time of 2.4 seconds. Now, I think the promotional material states a little bit higher than that, but they've obviously wringed the very best performance out of it. And it's time to the quarter mile, a slick 9.7 seconds. Now, this is a hybrid of sorts, although if you do run out of fuel, you're probably only going to get around 15 kilometres on the electric engine. But normally, that would be enough to get you to a fuel station. And the final 2 drivers are from Stake, with Valtteri Bottas not driving a car at all. It was pretty good weather for 3 of the 4 days and only a bit cool and cloudy on the Thursday, so he rode a bicycle in, this one. It's from Canyon, and they actually have a commercial arrangement with Valtteri. They've made him this gravel bike, at least I'm pretty sure it's a gravel bike, and that's what he does most of his riding on, gravel. And what's his bike worth? Oh, I got no idea. I'm figuring it's many thousands of euros. Your comments below will be much appreciated. And his teammate Zhou Guanyu, well, he's the only one I didn't actually see arrive in a car. But I'm going to suggest he came in one of these tissue box cars. Why? Well, I like them. I think they're quirky, and it's a great opportunity for me to work them into this video. Now, leaving the track on Sunday night, many of the drivers don't drive out. They instead catch a helicopter to probably Nagoya Airport for their flights. Although Oscar Piastri missed his helicopter transfer, and as such he was forced to take the train. His girlfriend Lily was on the helicopter, but I gather he had commitments that saw him miss his takeoff time slot. Oh, and in answer to my question earlier on of what percentage of people drive on the left-hand side of the road, it's about 30%, with the majority driving on the right-hand side. Now, if you don't want to drive from Nice to Barcelona on the Sunday after the Monaco Grand Prix, and you've got a couple of €1,000 in your pocket, why don't you consider joining me on a private jet? IncyJets have provided me with a citation plane for that 1-hour trip, and if you're keen to travel private, on Sunday night after the Grand Prix, probably around 9:45 p.m. Please email me, kim@kimellman.com, and let's see if we can join forces for that flight. Now, you've got things to do, I imagine, so could you please, before you go, like this video and subscribe? Thank you in advance. And for a whole lot of extra content and merchandise, flick through here. Thanks for watching.
Stay passionate.